It was the corporate rebellion no one expected, an American giant standing up to a president who built his image on dominance. And not just any president. Donald J. Trump. The king of America first, the champion of manufacturing, the man who promised the return of the American dream, one factory at a time. But in a single announcement, General Motors shattered that promise. 14,000 jobs. Gone. 5 major plants. Shut down. And with that, a message was sent. We're not playing by your rules anymore. Trump didn't just take it personally, he took it as war. This isn't a story about a few layoffs or a shift in business strategy. It's a high-voltage power struggle between two titans, corporate America versus political authority. And what came next would shake Wall Street, the White House, and the very foundation of the U.S. economy. Because GM didn't flinch. They didn't apologize. They went global. And Trump? He went ballistic. To understand how we got here, you have to understand what GM represents. For nearly a century, General Motors wasn't just an automaker, it was the heartbeat of American industry. It built more than cars. It built communities, middle-class dreams, and national pride. But in a world accelerating toward electric vehicles, globalized supply chains, and AI-driven logistics, GM knew one thing: survive or be left behind. So while politicians preach nostalgia, GM looked to the future. Their announcement was a tectonic shift, a ramp-up in EV investments, a reorganization of global manufacturing, and a retreat from traditional American plants. It wasn't just about saving money, it was about saving relevance in a cutthroat global race. And for Donald Trump, who'd promised to bring jobs back to the Rust Belt, this move was a direct betrayal. He'd stood on stages, promised factory reopenings, posed with hard hats, and now his narrative was crumbling. He lashed out instantly. Tweets, interviews, rallies. He called GM a disgrace. He accused them of turning their back on the American worker, and he swore they'd regret it. But GM wasn't bluffing. This wasn't an impulsive decision, it was a long game. Quietly, methodically, GM had been building the infrastructure to go global, supply chains across continents, partnerships abroad, and a clear focus on electrification. They weren't reacting, they were executing a strategy years in the making. To them, this wasn't abandonment. It was evolution, innovation, survival. They argued that the American auto industry couldn't win by staying stuck in the past. It had to expand, modernize, and reach for markets beyond borders. They promised billions in EV investment, new tech hubs, and job transitions for displaced workers. But to Trump's base, that didn't matter. The optics were brutal. Plants were closing. Jobs were disappearing. And the president who vowed to be their protector was suddenly powerless. And Trump? He didn't back down. He escalated. The White House scrambled to find leverage. Tariffs were thrown on the table. Regulatory threats. Public shaming. Anything to force GM to reverse course. But it was already too late. GM had distributed its operations so widely, so strategically, that no single blow could cripple it. While Trump played checkers, GM played chess. Their global footprint meant they couldn't be cornered by U.S. pressure alone. And then GM went on offense. No apologies. No retractions. Just bold, calculated moves. Through press releases, media appearances, and carefully crafted messaging, GM painted themselves not as villains, but as visionaries. They weren't betraying America, they were saving it. Guiding the industry into the future. Leading the EV revolution. Industry experts took notice. Investors rallied behind GM. Wall Street, spooked at first, began to see the long-term play. And suddenly, it was Trump who looked reactive. Desperate. Outmaneuvered. But the battle was just beginning. Because GM's move sparked a wildfire across the industry. Ford, Toyota, even Tesla. They were watching. And now they had a choice: stick to the America First script or join GM in redefining what it meant to be a global automaker in the 21st century. Ford, already struggling to balance domestic loyalty with profits, began reevaluating. Toyota, a master of international logistics, quietly aligned with GM's global strategy. And Tesla, born from innovation, kept doubling down on overseas expansion. The message was clear: the old rules were dead. Politics could no longer dictate industrial policy. The market was evolving too fast. Electrification, automation, and climate policy were the new forces shaping the future. And while the corporations recalibrated, the workers pushed back. Unions were enraged. Protests erupted outside shuttered factories. Thousands demanded clarity. Would their jobs return? Or were they now relics of a bygone era? For some, this was betrayal. For others, inevitability. Technology was moving forward, and no president, no matter how loud, could stop it. But Trump wasn't finished. In a last-ditch attempt to regain control, he dropped a bombshell, a 200% tariff on all GM imports. Economic warfare. Trump framed it as protecting American jobs. But economists saw a dangerous gamble. Car prices would skyrocket. Supply chains would seize up. Consumers would suffer. Investors panicked. Auto stocks plummeted. And still, GM didn't flinch. Because they had planned for this too. Long before the tariff threat, GM had already diversified. Batteries from China. Electronics from Mexico. Assembly lines spread across Europe and Asia. The tariff couldn't touch them where they were strongest. While Trump was tightening borders, GM was building bridges. They formed alliances with foreign governments, secured rare earth minerals, and built battery plants overseas. If America shut the door, other markets would swing theirs wide open. And ironically, while Trump tried to punish GM, he may have pushed them into greater global dominance. Their overseas revenues surged. Foreign demand for EVs exploded. Meanwhile, Trump's tariffs pushed up car prices at home and risked alienating key allies. Economists warned of a trade war that could cripple not just GM, but the entire U.S. auto sector. And while the president fought to preserve an industrial past, GM was writing the future. But here's the twist. They weren't the only winners. Battery suppliers, chip makers, EV startups, everyone in the global EV ecosystem began cashing in. Rivian, Lucid, CATL, BID. The industry was shifting, and the nimble were rising. China doubled down on EV supremacy. Europe passed aggressive green policies. Investment flooded into future tech. And America? Caught in a war between its past and its future. Trump set out to save American industry. But in his battle against GM, he may have handed the future to China, Silicon Valley, and the very forces he tried to hold back. Because this was never just about cars. It was about power, control, and whether nationalism can survive in a world where borders mean less and innovation means everything. The battle lines are drawn. The question now is not who wins today, but who controls tomorrow. And if this story tells us anything, it's this. In the war between politics and progress, progress never asks permission. And yet, the showdown between Trump and GM is just one chapter in a much bigger story. Because what's happening here isn't just about one company or one administration. It's a warning shot for every industry leader, every policymaker, and every worker wondering where they fit in this new world. The old rules are crumbling. The future is fast, electric, and borderless. And as the dust settles, only one truth remains. Adapt or be left behind. The question isn't whether change is coming. It's whether we're ready for it. And that is a decision we all have to face sooner than we think.